everybody. Thanks for coming to watch The Ring of Democracy. Well, that's the name of our nonprofit anyway. So we engage, educate, organize, and mobilize Black, Brown, and historically marginalized communities so that we can better advocate for ourselves and our communities. And one of the ways that we're doing that is that we are going to be in the civic engagement fight. And with us today, we have Barbara Leary, who is going to be running for Folsom City Council.
Correct.
And I think you were saying in the break that this is the first time that there's going to be somebody in this seat in the last 2 years.
Well, they redistricted, or actually created districts, in 2022. And when they did that, there was no one living in the district that was created where I live. So 2 council members lived in the same district and were allowed to finish their terms at the end of this year. So there's been an open seat for 2 years, and this is the first time we'll have the opportunity to fill it.
Wow, well that's exciting. Can you introduce the viewers to yourself as a person, not just as a candidate? Tell me about how long have you lived in Folsom, and tell me a little bit about yourself.
Okay, I'm a 32-year resident of Folsom. I moved there in 1992 when some of the new building was taking place. I'm a former resident in Sacramento for a long time prior to that. I'm a retired nurse practitioner from UC Davis. And I became very involved in my community not long after moving to Folsom because there were a lot of changes taking place around me, and as the town grew, problems were created that I felt we needed to address as a community. So what I did in the early to mid 1990s was to create a community organization so our residents in the 1,500 homes in my area would have a voice in the decision-making process in Folsom. We were able to be very effective in making sure that the development that took place around us was something that was neighborhood friendly. We have a walkable neighborhood. We did have to do a lot of work to make sure that our streets were safe to cross because crosswalks were not where they should be across 4-lane roads between homes and schools and parks. And we did a very effective job of that over the years, and I couldn't have accomplished all that without having neighbors who had the same concerns and were willing to show up at City Hall.
That's great. So do you feel like you've been able to kind of create relationships in your neck of the woods with different nonprofits and different organizations? And how would that, how can you involve different nonprofits with you if you win?
I've always involved different nonprofits since I've been there. There's a historic Folsom Residents Association. There's the Friends of Folsom Parkways. There is the the Friends of Hinkle Creek. So throughout the years, different organizations have popped up within town, and that's where my focus has been in working with others just in the city of Folsom. I'm also the chair of the Sierra Club for Sacramento County. And in that role, I've had a lot of opportunity to interact with a lot of different nonprofits. And one of our goals has been to expand our outreach to EJ neighborhoods, because a lot of them are impacted by environmental issues that are really dangerous for people's health and safety and well-being. I've also worked with the city and the county staff and elected officials over the years to kind of move things forward so we have a community that's livable for people and sustainable.
I see. It sounds like you really do care about environmental justice. You said EJ. So for our audience members, that's environmental justice.
Yes.
And also, it looks like healthcare is one of your big things that you care about. One of the things that our voters have been really talking about is this this epidemic of homelessness that's been happening in Sacramento and surrounding areas, and Folsom as well.
The entire state.
The entire state.
And country.
Yes.
To a certain extent, yes.
Absolutely. So as a council member, what can we do about that?
I'm really focused on getting Folsom and the surrounding cities and the county to work together. There's currently a bill that's been proposed by Kevin McCarty, and who has been working with Josh Hoover, who's the representative for our area, to create a joint power authority where all of those entities get together to discuss the issues and create a shared vision of how to house people who are homeless, create mental health facilities that are actually reachable. Right now, all of the mental health facilities for people who don't have insurance are in downtown Sacramento. So people out in the suburbs really don't have access, and that is a huge problem. Right now, I've also been working with, we have a group in Folsom called Jake's Journey Home, and by working with, I mean, you know, supporting their efforts and getting the word out about what's available. We also have a group called Heart that does some housing for the homeless, but only during the winter. And the other organization is Powerhouse Ministries. They've done a great job of building a women's center and are working on establishing a men's center where people can get both mental health, chemical dependency treatment, ongoing support as they move back into a place to live and into a job. And we can't rely only on volunteer organizations.
Right.
We need to have funding to create long-term stable facilities for people that would suit a broad variety of needs. And as you know, those are really difficult to find because, for example, the city of Sacramento has set up a couple of places where homeless people could either camp or live in a trailer or mobile home, and then later had been moved on to another site. And that is probably the greatest obstacle to overcome in finding some temporary and then long-term permanent housing for people, is finding a place that the neighbors don't all object to and insist that the local elected officials move somewhere else.
Right. I mean, it's not easy to find affordable housing in Folsom.
No, and that has been a really big issue there, although I would have to say affordable housing has been created to a much greater degree over the last 4 to 5 years. The city has been working with St. Anton's, which is a nonprofit, and developed affordable rental units. And those are always full, almost as soon as they open. There's a long waiting list to get into them. One of the things that we really need to develop, though, is housing that's affordable for the lower and missing middle classes to purchase. So there's no step up available in many of the communities around here, and not just Folsom.
How do you balance preserving Folsom's natural resources with the demand for development?
That's been one of the challenges that I've faced for many years in Folsom, because I have actually fought hard to keep a lot of our natural spaces as they are, either as open space or recreational areas where there are trails along the way. And we're right next to the state park, where a lot of our trails can connect to the state park. We had a great vision that was brought forward by a council member many years ago called the Humbug Willow Creek Parkway that runs through Folsom along one of our creeks. And protecting that has been a goal for years, and that's one of the things I worked on with Friends of Folsom Parkways, is to ensure that those trails remain open and safe to travel on. While I was on the Planning Commission, I found that it was hard, but remained one of my goals, to get developers to set aside open space and put trails and more natural parks in, because those are the kinds of things that people actually treasure when they come to Folsom. They go, I love the parks, I love the trails, I love the river, and we really need to maintain that area while providing housing. We do have a great plan coming forward that will be, again, difficult to implement, but there's an older corridor in Folsom called the East Bidwell Street Corridor that's recently been approved for a redevelopment kind of project. And I'm not trying to imply that there is redevelopment funding out there. We really need to get some of the developers to invest in that area and put in more housing that is not single-family housing, but condominiums, townhouses, and other mixed-use types of development where it can be a walkable community but affordable, and hopefully affordable for people to purchase some of those units so that we don't lose, the option for generational wealth for younger people.
Yeah, one of the things I was going to ask you about would be traffic congestion, but it sounds like if you have that environmental approach and you make things walkable, that's one solution. Can you think of other traffic solutions for congestion?
Well, I'm a huge proponent of carpooling, using public transit. We do have the light rail system coming up there, and prior to the pandemic, it was actually well used for commuters coming and going from Sacramento. We have a bus system that doesn't get a lot of use except from young people, but I think that can be expanded upon. So there are a lot of options out there. It's really hard in a suburban area that's been developed for car use only, where people have to walk or bike long distances to get to any kinds of services, markets, coffee shops, restaurants. And in the new plan area, some of that thinking is coming to fruition. It's slow.
So we've talked about housing and we've talked about traffic. Can we talk a little bit about business? What kinds of businesses would you want to attract to Folsom? Like what would be your priorities to diversify Folsom's revenue?
I'd really like to see some, larger scale employers come into town. We have an office park in Folsom that's been there for years. I drove through the other day and there were at least 7 buildings that were almost entirely, if not entirely, empty for rent. And we really need to do a lot of research into what kind of businesses need that kind of a facility to get them back in use. And one of the things I think is missing too are the kinds of businesses or jobs that attract young people. So it's sort of matching the work that needs to be done with within the city and a business that provides that kind of work, and housing for young people that are just starting out and don't have the high income needed to buy a single family home. So that's something that I would look for an economic development person to look into and help us with. I think there's a lot of opportunities for outreach throughout California and other states to see what's working and what isn't working elsewhere.
Yeah. What steps would you take to grow local businesses post-pandemic especially?
That's a really difficult question. If we're talking about growing existing businesses, I think that we need to focus more on what the young people and the people with families are looking for so that they're not leaving town to shop or work elsewhere. A recent study that was done showed that 80% of the people who live in Folsom are commuting outside for jobs, and 79% of the people that are working in Folsom are commuting in, and those people are primarily people who can't afford to live in town. So this is kind of a transition that we need to make from being a commuter community to a self-sustaining whole community.
Right. So we're running out of time, but I just wanted to give you an opportunity to talk directly to the voters and tell the voters exactly why they should vote for you, and also where they can find more information.
Thank you for having me here today. I really appreciate the opportunity. I'm Barbara Leary, running for Folsom City Council. My website is barbaraforfolsom.com. I've been involved in Folsom for 32 years and the greater Sacramento area for that length of time. I've worked hard to have our community involved in local government and participated in a lot of the decision making along the way. I would love to have your vote to support me. I believe that I have the connections within Folsom and throughout the county to do a better job of moving Folsom forward and making it a place where we all live, work, and play together. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Barbara. Once again, this has been Scarlette Bustos with the Ring of Democracy. And if you'd like to find out more about us, we are theringofdemocracy.org. Hope you can watch our other episodes featuring other lawmakers who are running for office in California, and be sure to do your research and please vote November 5th. Thanks.